Hey guys, it's Hachiman. I'm going to do a once-over, a bit of a review for you on the M26 Pershing and its cousin, the T26E4 Super Pershing. Now, let me apologize if at any point I refer to these two tanks as heavy tanks instead of medium tanks. If you know the history, you know for a fact that these were heavy tanks upon their inception. When the Pershing entered service in 1945, it was a heavy tank designed to be able to compete toe-to-toe with the Tiger, which generally it did pretty well, though very few actually saw combat in World War II. It mostly saw combat in Korea. The Super Pershing was an experimental tank, never saw service, was designed to be, simply put, a heavier version. When they reclassified the Pershing as a medium tank, they decided to, they all were always messing with variants and whatnot, and they came up with the Super Pershing with more armor. Now, in terms of World of Tanks terms, these tanks have identical guns, essentially. Okay, they both have the Tier 8 90mm gun. Now, they do have different model codes, and the Super Pershing gun is very slightly nerfed against the Pershing. Now, when I say very slightly, I mean it is 10mm less average penetration than the Pershing, which you're not going to see that. The rate of fire is identical, the dispersion, the aim time are both identical. This 90mm gun is a good gun. It's got enough penetration to damage a lot of tanks. Now, if you have a Tier 9 heavy tank with heavily sloped armor in front of you, you're going to have some issues with this. But in two of my videos I'm going to post a video of both the M26 and the Super Pershing, and you will see that in both those videos I actually handle that well. Talk about the Pershing for a moment. The Pershing is a little slow for a medium tank at 48 kph on the top engine. Now again, it was a heavy tank upon its inception, so upon entering into service. The hull armor is a fairly mediocre 101 front, 76 side, and 50 on the rear. I can promise you no one will have any trouble penetrating your tank if they're shooting anywhere from here to here. They'll have absolutely no trouble with it. The turret armor is better. 127 front, 76 side, 63 in the rear. Again, side and rear, no trouble penetrating that. However, the front is a different story. We're showing 127mm of turret armor. Fact of the matter is, that only counts for right through here, which is a very small target. This big rectangular portion is, of course, the gun mantlet, and we all know about American gun mantlets being notoriously difficult to penetrate with their regular armor and the spaced armor underneath. If you can get hull down so that someone's having to shoot directly at your turret, they're going to have an extremely difficult time hurting this tank. Now, you have a weak spot on top, the hatch. Though, again, if you're hull down, that's not a big target, and it's got some sloping on it. But if you're up on a hill where they're shooting up at you, which of course I can't do that with this angle right here, but if you were, you can protect that completely. In terms of the frontal hull armor of 101, that's basically referring to this area right here, and you see it's got a pretty good slope on it. You can pull off a bounce, especially if you can keep yourself turned slightly like this. You don't want to turn more than about right here, because then you expose your side too much, and then you're done for. Weak spot, the machine gun right here, of course, and the lower plate, which is extremely easy to penetrate. I believe it's only rated around 57mm of armor, so you've got to keep pardon me, you've got to keep that down. Now, the gun, the top gun is the 90mm T15E2 M2, blah, 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 blah. 180mm of penetration, more than adequate to penetrate just about anything in the side or the rear. And in the front, you'll have no trouble dealing with lower tier tanks. Tier 8 heavies, if you're not good at shooting at weak spots, the T-32, the IS-3, the IS-6, the T-34, those might cause you some troubles. However, premium ammunition fires with a penetration of 268, which is absolutely fantastic. That 268 penetration is about enough to penetrate just about any tank in the game. Simply put, you just have to know where to shoot. HE ammo, 45 millimeters a pen. What do you want? It's HE. But the damage boost for HE is really not that great, frankly. You go up 80 points, but you lose so much penetration, you will never realize that number of 320 damage unless you're shooting at extremely soft targets. And I'm not talking Waffentraggers. I'm talking artillery from behind. And you'll see that in one of the videos as well. Super Pershing. Now this is a totally different beastie. Again, rated as it's called a medium tank in World of Tanks, but it's a heavy. You need to play it like a heavy, and you need to think of it like a heavy. It is not that fast, 40.2 kph top speed, and you oftentimes won't reach that unless you're on hard-packed terrain, roads. Going downhill, of course, you can exceed it a little bit, but on moderate terrain, you're going to run in the 30s, sometimes lower 30s. The gun, virtually identical to what you just looked at in the M26 Pershing. I already told you it has 10 millimeters less penetration, and that holds true on AP and APCR ammo, however, not on the HE. Rate of fire is identical. Dispersion aiming time. This gun is a pretty accurate gun on both of these tanks. With a .38 dispersion per 100 meters, it is pretty accurate. It's one of the more accurate guns, and you'll see that in my videos. I don't miss very often. 2.3 aiming time's a little meh, but you can deal with it. Especially with this guy. And the reason for it is the M26 Pershing has 1440 hit points, which is fine for Tier 8 medium. The Super Pershing, like most premiums, gets a few more at 1500. But what you need to focus on is this number right here. Frontal hull armor 177, and you can see it's got the same type of slope as the M26 Pershing. There's a lot of high tier guns in the game that will bounce shells off this upper plate all day. Okay? Even the machine gun, the soft spot, is kind of recessed, surrounded by heavy armor. That's a precision shot right there. The turret is only rated at 101, okay, which is actually less than the M26 Pershing. But it's a little misleading because you've got these armor plates right here, which are not actually, from the front, are not penetrable, okay, simply put. If someone hits this, there's a strong chance it's going to deflect off, again, hitting it straight on, and even if it gets through, then it's got to go through this, which you can see the angle on that. I mean, that's going to cause an auto bounce quite often. The gun mantlet, again, American gun mantlet, extremely thick. Very few tanks are going to penetrate that reliably. You do have a little bit of an issue right here, though. This thing can be damaged all day. This guy is slower. Again, 40 kph. You have to play him more like a heavy tank, but you don't quite have the firepower of other Tier 8 heavies. With an average damage on AP ammo of 240, you're not going to get that big hit that you get out of the IS-3, or even the T-32 with its 105 that it inherits from the T-29. You're just not going to get that big hit. But the penetration is reasonable. The major thing is keep your lower plate protected. Okay? Do not let anybody flank this tank. They will have no trouble damaging either of these tanks from the flank. It's like most American tanks, it's a fairly high-profile target, and the armor on this guy, 76 side hull and turret, 76 rear turret, 76 rear turret and 50 rear hull, so easily damaged from there. That completes the overview from this perspective. One last thing, they both have a view range of, a signal range of 745. View range is 400